Hello and welcome. It is Vintage Super League Last Chance Qualifier time. I'm Randy Bueller. I'm joined by new Vintage Super League member. Congratulations once again, Brian Kelly.
Thank you. Hi, everybody.
Welcome. You don't have to sweat the Last Chance Qualifier. You actually just took care of business last week, got one of the 4 spots that we gave away on last week's show.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, there's an asterisk there, but
An asterisk. You didn't take care of business. You had to go to the losers bracket. It doesn't count in your mind.
No, I was in a match last week, and it was 2 a.m. here, and I had everything meticulously under control, and then right when I won the game, I just zoned out, and I was like, well, whatever, I'll do this, I'll do that, and then I was like, wait a minute, that's stupid. So I did lose a game, and you win some, you lose some. It's kind of embarrassing to lose by zoning out and doing something that's just empirically and objectively wrong. Like, there's no, well, it was reasonable because maybe there's an opposing viewpoint. It was like, that was wrong. Yeah. And I don't think that if I had taken a nap from 11 p.m. until 1:30 a.m. that would have happened. But, excuses. Anyway.
All right, so you still haven't forgiven yourself for the punt from last week, but you are in the league, punt or no punt, and you're going to be joined by one of our 8 remaining competitors. We can put the bracket up and roll these brackets up randomly. Everybody's got new decks, new opponents, and there are some spicy matches here. Kai Buddha versus Bob Maher. That's 2 of the best 5 or 10 players in the history of the game. And then Reed Duke versus David Williams.
Yep.
How are these first-round matches?
Well, I
guess they're all
cream of the crop.
Yeah, pretty much any 2 of these names paired against each other is going to be a pretty exciting match of Vintage to watch. So the way we're going to do this is, first we're going to watch the top half of the bracket, then we're going to watch the bottom half of the bracket. And specifically, there's 7 matches required to finish the single elim tournament here, and 7 matches is kind of long for a Tuesday evening. So what we're going to do is we're going to start the first round matches 2 at a time. Kai is going to play Bob, and then simultaneously Nick is going to play Andy. That's Brassman, obviously. Once we finish with that top half of the bracket and have our finalists, we'll watch Reed play David while Tom and Caleb start off camera. When our main match finishes, we will, of course, cut over to the other match that's going on simultaneously. And it turns out Nick Koss actually had an issue at his store that he had to deal with. So Nick is going to be a little late getting here tonight anyway, and we're pretty sure he has managed to escape his store, that everything's okay there, and that he is going to be able to play that match. So we should get to see a decent chunk of Nick versus Brassman. And I hope so, too, because you haven't seen the deck lists, but I have. And Nick brings some spice to the table once again. What do you think those guys would play? Do you have any predictions on what kind of decks do you think we're going to see tonight? Because it is fresh decks. People could bring whatever they wanted.
In terms of Nick versus Andy, I would think that Andy would play something really orthodox and controlling. Some sort of, my gut would say, some sort of Monastery Mentor type control deck. He's not the type of player that's boxed into one archetype. He's not someone that's afraid to think outside of the box.
Certainly.
But the decks I usually see from him tend to be more controlling. So I would think some sort of restrictive Stacks Prison or a mentor deck. I mean, I guess if you really want to win, you have to play a mentor deck with Gush. So I would expect that from him. Nick is just the Wild West. I mean, as combo-tastic as Vintage gets, that's what you're going to see from Nick Koss. So I would think maybe you'll see Belcher, Burning Oath. I think even Dark Petition Storm might be too mundane for him. That's just not wild enough.
All right, well, we'll see what happens when we get to that match. I will say that our producer, as she was putting the deck list together for this week, suggested that even if Nick doesn't make it into the league, he should just be in charge of picking everyone's decks. We should just all have to play Nick Koss decks.
Oh, my.
That would be fun.
I wouldn't mind, actually. I mean, I like combo decks, too.
Yeah, same. Our main match that we're going to start on, though, Kai Buddha against the great one, Bob Maher. A pair of Magic Hall of Famers, both of whom have been playing Vintage on and off for a bunch of years.
Mm-hmm. I have no idea what either one of them are going to play. I would be intrigued to see if Kai reprises that Enlightened Tutor deck from the previous season. That would be interesting. And Bob, I think we've seen him play Workshop, Esper Mentor, I believe. I think he was on a Tinker and a Time Vault deck at one point. So I really don't know. And either of them could just surprise us with Dredge, Doomsday. I don't know. I think it's very much an open question what either of those two will play. And they didn't necessarily pick the deck with that specific opponent in mind. They picked the deck for an 8-person tournament. So predicting the other person's predilections isn't going to factor into that. It's what deck would they think would be best suited for an 8-person tournament. And they have a history of playing decks across the archetypes. So it's really an open question.
Yeah, that is a great point. I also know that. Interesting. I was going to say they both played Workshop decks last week, so I don't know, different takes on the Workshop archetype, but those were our two Workshop players last week. I think, though, that they strike me as the kind of guys who like to mix it up. Like, I don't know that they would just run it straight back, especially when there is this metagame element that enters into it where you don't know where you're going to land in the bracket, but you do know who your 7 opponents are. Right.
I wouldn't be surprised to see someone playing that Eldrazi deck. There's a Vintage deck that is kind of like a successor to the Workshop decks. They have 4 Thought-Knot Seers, and I've seen many different variations on that. Like, I have logged into Magic Online and been killed by a Reality Smasher on turn 2 or turn 3. And I think a Swords to Plowshare it once, and I was very new to the program, and I was like, why didn't it kill that creature? And my opponent was like, well, you ignored the trigger where you have to discard a card, so you're just going to take 5 and lose. And I was like, oh, okay, I lose.
Yeah, I played the daily event last night on Magic Online, and I'm 2-1. I'm playing to try to win some points and a couple of packs. And Rich Shea was trying out the white Eldrazi deck. He was actually streaming it last night, and yeah, I was playing land still, and Cavern of Souls naming Eldrazi, Uncounterable Reality Smasher comes down. Like, I was slogging my way through the Thalias that were coming out of that deck, and then Reality Smasher comes down off of Cavern of Souls. So I've got Sudden Shock for the Thalia, the Force of Will, and I lose. Especially, I was trying out the red version of Landstill that's had some success. I think it's Power Gamer or some such has a red version of Landstill with Sudden Shocks to kill Mentors. Mm-hmm. You know what? Red cards don't kill. They don't kill Eldrazi. You can't kill a Thought-Knot Seer or a Reality Smasher with red cards. That just isn't how Vintage works, unfortunately.
I would say, in terms of Landstill, when you're choosing your supplementary colors, when you weigh white versus red, generally when you're thinking of red, you want to stop Workshop decks, and when you're thinking of white, you want to stop decks that have a lot of skulls in their casting costs, like Dark Ritual type decks, Bridge from Below, black. You want to stop Dredge, you want to stop Combo, you want to stop Oath of Druids, you go with white. If you want to stop Workshops. Mm-hmm.
Well, the twist on the deck I was playing was that it was red for Sudden Shock, so it was trying to be the anti-mentor version of Landstill specifically. I mean, I went 2-2. It didn't work great because, sure, I might have been good against Mentor, but I was getting paired against Eldrazi. Anyway, I brought this up because you were talking about the white Eldrazi deck, which I think that might be a real deck. Like, you take Paul Rietzel's Hate Bear deck and cross it with an Eldrazi deck, and you wind up with something where it's mono white-ish. Like, you can play, there's some cool Displacer combos, you can play some white Hate Bears, and your curve goes up to Thought-Knot. It won a tournament in Europe over the weekend, and, I mean, whatever, Rich 3-1 to that daily.
This is where we need you to get on the phone to your friends at Design and say, we need Ancient Grudge for creatures.
Ha!
Choose the creature, flash it back, kill another one.
Fair
I'm only kidding, but, I mean, these creatures are, wow. They didn't get much respect in Vintage 10 years ago, and now the format is largely all about them, whether it's a Monastery Mentor, a Young Pyromancer, of course, Grizzlebrand, and that's more of a cheap play kind of creature. But these Hate Bears, wow. There's critical mass of them at this point that they're so constraining. And you don't have easy answers to them the way that you can put a Pulverize in your blue deck to get rid of all the artifacts at once. They don't quite have Hurkyl's Recall for creatures. Like, you really have to go all in on getting rid of each creature individually, which means that when you get paired against a vintage deck, you draw Swords of Plowshares, Swords of Plowshares, Swords of Plowshares, and then you lose. Because they play Lotus Chase, and you're like, well, I prepared for all of these creatures that are running rampant. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it gives an interesting dynamic to the format that we have some creature decks that can really pose. And I can't believe I'm going to say this. These creatures are posing an existential threat to the natural order of vintage. They're
great. Looks like all of our matches are in fact going to happen. Just to give you guys an update, it's funny, Nick Koss had an issue with his store where we knew he was going to be running a few minutes late, and it turns out Bob Maher had an issue where his internet at his house just stopped working, so he drove to work. And Bob Maher has just walked in, having driven to work in order to make sure that he can play his Vintage Super League match. So sorry for getting a couple of minutes late start. But we do have now all 4 of our folks for our pair of first rounders up, and we're going to start on the match between Andy and Nick. So Nick showed up a couple of minutes before Bob did, and I wanted to see these decks anyway. Like I said, Bob and Kai are on perfectly reasonable decks. I honestly, I think their match is probably going to be the slower of the two, so I fully expect us to get to see the resolution of that match after we watch what Brassman and Nick Koss are up to.
All right.
So yeah, that'll be our plan. We're getting them into a match. We can talk about. We are going to have a preview card. So I mentioned this earlier. We've actually got 2 Eternal Masters preview cards. The first of which we'll show you after this first set of matches, and then we'll show you another one later on in the show. I did want to talk about how sweet Eternal Masters is in general, though. I mean, this set. Have you been following the previews as they've come out recently? I've
seen some of the spoilers. It looks like it hasn't disappointed at all. It has Jace the Mind Sculptor. I love that card. I mean, you could put that at any rare. You could say that it's an expedition and it's in one every 10,000 packs or something. And I'll say, well, I'll buy that because I want to get a Jace. I just love Jace is so good. I was a blue-white player back in the day. I played the so-called Weissman deck, and everything that's been said about Jace the Mind Sculptor being such an upgrade to JM Day Tome, completely true.
Look, I still play JM Day Tomes. I'm with you right there.
Oh, it was great in a limited tournament I went to. I was in a two-headed giant with my friend Justin Kohler. We went to one. I think it was Magic Origins. Is that where they printed JM Day Tome recently? I don't know, but
it was Origins.
And it was really busted.
Yeah, I enjoyed that as well. So we'll have more Eternal Masters talk for you after the match, but we got some Magic. So let's get down to the action. Let's kick off the Vintage Super League Last Chance Qualifier.